Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'a nahjahum ila yawmiddin. Afterwards, we are going to proceed with our discussion related to the Mustalah al-Hadith, that is the Hadith terminology. So in our previous session, we discussed about the ta'rif of Mustalah al-Hadith, the definition of Mustalah al-Hadith, and likewise the definition of al-Hadith, and the differences between the word al-Hadith, al-Khabar, and al-Athar. So we discussed about all this in the previous session. So we started to elaborate something related to the al-Khabar. As I mentioned yesterday or in the previous session, that there are differences between the term al-hadith and the term al-khabar, because the word khabar or the term khabar signifies to many issues. You can consider al-khabar as news. You can consider al-khabar as a story or a headline even, or a narration. So that's the reason why Sheikh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymin mentioned that it is more broader and more vast as compared to the term al-athar or al-hadith. So here our today's point of discussion would be based on al-khabar. So أقسام الخبر باعتبار طرق نقله إلينا. The classification of al-khabar, the classification of narration based on how it arrived to us. أقسام الخبر باعتبار طرق نقله إلينا. Meaning the classification of al-khabar, the classification of a narration or a story or hadith, by observing the pathway of its arrival to us. So whenever a story comes to you, you can classify that kind of story. Maybe it will be a kind of story that you can disseminate directly by looking towards some of the circumstances. And that's why I keep mentioning there are statements to be mentioned before occurrence of something. And there are kind of statement or utterances that you can mention after the occurrence of an incident. And that's why we have to look in every kind of situation. If something happened, you have to look, is it the right time to make a commentary, or is it the wrong time to make a commentary regarding that? So the Allahul Ilm, the ulama knows these issues. If an incident occurs, there is a kind of utterances that you can make as a commentary on that, and there are utterances to say after the occurrence of an incident. If you mention the words that supposed not to be mentioned at the time where that incident is happening, you may end up getting into a mess or creating mess to the society or to the listeners. So even in narration or a story, there is a kind of classification. And that's why even it is not every news or every story or every saying of a person that I have to react to it. First, when someone tells me something of a story or headline, I have to think about the classification. How can I classify his saying? So I have to classify it based upon the way of which it arrived to me. So likewise, أقسام الخبر باعتبار طرق نقله إلينا. The classification of a khabar, of a narration based upon the way of its arrival to us. Before we heard about the hadith, definitely there is a kind of pathway. We know in every situation, like in biochemistry, we know about glucose pathway. We know about all those kind of pathways, of metabolic pathway. So likewise also in the case of that is narration, you can classify that is narration before even knowing that this is authentic or not. So likewise, al-khabru, a narration, can be classified based on its pathway by observing the pathway of its arrival to us. So these are the points that we have to look when considering any news or story or a narration. So ينقسم الخبر باعتبار طرق نقله إلينا إلى قسمين. Narration can be classified by observing the pathway of its arrival to us into two categories. متواتر وآحاد. So it can be classified as follows. One is mutawatir and the second one is al-ahad. So that's the issue. The narration can be classified based upon the pathway, by observing the pathway of its arrival to us. And the classification will be as follows. Either al-ahad or mutawatir. So these are the basic classification. The narration can be mutawatir. What is mutawatir? That is polymorphic. And al-ahad unimorphic. So this is how it is. Mutawatir is a kind of narration that came from different, that is Sahaba. A single text, a single statement that was narrated from numerous narrators, numerous, that is our companions. And al-ahad is a kind of narration that was obtained from a single companion. Like for example, if you are talking about mutawatir, it's a kind of narration that comes from different narrators. So for example, for today, if you come across a news or a headline, for you to verify whether it is authentic or not, there is one route. You can check for several news channels in order to see is it reported or not. When it is reported by so many news channels or so many journals or so many narrators, so by that you would consider this is authentic, and you can also testify that it is a kind of narration that differs with any other narration, and there is a kind of news that would come that would be reported by a single journalist or by a single reporter. So in that kind of issue, there would be differences with the one that is polymorphic and the one that is unimorphic. The one that was narrated by different storytellers and the one that is narrated by a single storyteller. So when a narration comes, you can classify that narration based on the way, by observing the way of its arrival to you. And the classification would be of two types. It would be as follows. Either it would be unimorphic or polymorphic, mutawatir or polymorphic, like al-ahad, unimorphic narration. Similar, like example of such hadith like the إنما الأعمال بالنيات. The only Sahabi that narrated that matter among the companions is Umar radiallahu anhu. So as for Umar, he was the one that sourced that matter. So his narration is al-ahad. It is unimorphic. And it is also authentic. Being a single narration, being it a unique narration, doesn't mean that it is not authentic. It can be authentic, it can be that is insignificant. So that's one of the issues. So likewise, there are other ahadith that were in the form of al-mutawatir, like man kadhaba alayya falyatabawwa' maq'adahu min an-nar. So let us move further. Al-mutawatir. We are going to start with the first topic, al-mutawatir, the polymorphic narration. تعريفه أقسامه مع التمثيل ما يفيده. We are going to discuss about تعريفه, its definition. What is the definition of al-mutawatir? And also أقسامه مع التمثيل, its classification, the types of al-mutawatir, with some examples and also my video and what it teaches. So when you heard about mutawatir, a polymorphic narration, a narration that comes in numerous pathway, numerous chain of transmission, a kind of hadith that was narrated by many Sahaba. So how can you classify that? And also, what are the examples of that? And what is the learning outcome from hadith mutawatir? So these are the points that we are going to discuss in this session. Al-mutawatir. If we say al-mutawatir, what is mutawatir? ما رواه جماعة يستحيل في العادة أن يتواطؤوا على الكذب وأسندوه إلى شيء محسوس. Is any hadith that was reported or narrated by numerous narrators, which is insignificant for them to get unified in something of a lie, to get unified on a lie for which they refer it to something relating to sensory. So what Uthaymin is trying to mention here is that if we say al-mutawatir, is that ما رواه جماعة يستحيل في العادة أن يتواطؤوا على الكذب, is the one that many narrators, numerous reporters narrated that, which is insignificant to say that they would get unified on a lie. If a report, for example, or a story is narrated by many narrators, so in normal circumstances, it is insignificant to give a kind of commentary to that or to consider that as a falsehood or as a lie. A kind of story that was narrated by many individuals, uncountable reporters. You cannot just criticize that as a lie, and most especially if that story, if that news, or if that narration is referred to something that is sensory, something related to senses, something that is related to sensory, إلى شيء محسوس, to something that is sensory, meaning something that you would be able to see, or you would be able to perceive, or you would be able to touch. So anything that can be observed, or anything that can be recognized by the sensory organs. If a narration comes with that, and the narration comes from different reporters, so that is al-mutawatir. I think this point is clear. So al-mutawatir, the definition of mutawatir is that al-mutawatir can be defined as a kind of narration that is reported or that was reported by several narrators, which is in contingency, which is insignificant for them to get unified on a lie, to report a false narration, false news, or false statement. And most especially if they refer that narration to something related to sensory, something that is related to the senses, something that you can recognize by your sensory organs. We know we have 5 sensory organs. We have the mouth, we have the eye, that is the eyes, the 2 eyes. We have the nose, we have the ears and the skin. So the skin comprises the hands, the private parts, and all the other body parts. So these are the basic sensory organs. The mouth, the nose, the eyes, the ears, and the skin. So something that you can feel, maybe by hand, for example, you can touch, or you can see, or you can listen, you can hear. So if you would be able to utilize your sensory organs to feel it, or to visualize it, or to perceive it, or to react to it, and a narration comes in such a way, and it is enormous form of narration. It comes from several reporters, so that is considered as polymorphic. I think this point is clear. So this is the difference. So if a kind of hadith was narrated by different companions, and the narration came about something that is related to sensory, something that is related to the senses. So, in normal circumstances, it is insignificant to consider that as a lie. Many reporters cannot report something that is a lie, even today. This is how you base on the deen, the decorum of the deen. This is how to verify the authenticity of news. Like today we are dwindling with the social medias. We are like having some kind of issues related to the social medias. Anybody can post his own saying, his own idea or his own report, and someone can even fabricate a lie to publicize or to criticize someone, or for example to blackmail a particular sect or group, for example, or to blackmail a particular race or particular community or particular nation. So the way to verify these kind of issues, you have to observe towards the way of that is its arrival to you. If it is through the social media, try as such to go search for other sources to see whether if other reporters or other journalists or other news channels report such kind of news or report such kind of headline. So by this you will be able to know this is authentic, because it is something that is insignificant that a polymorphic narration, a narration that came from different pathways to get declined to something that is false. So this is mutawatir. Then وينقسم إلى قسمين. It can be classified to two categories. وينقسم إلى قسمين. And it is classified in two categories. It is classified into two classes. So there are two classes of al-mutawatir, of which mutawatir lafzan wa ma'na. The mutawatir that is lafzan and the mutawatir ma'na. These are the basic classic of mutawatir. So even if the narration comes from different sources, uncountable sources, it can be also classified. There is mutawatir lafzan, mutawatir ma'na. So mutawatir lafzan meaning the one that is polymorphic in statement, or mutawatir ma'na, and the one that is polymorphic meaningly. So there is the one that is polymorphic literally, and there is the one that is polymorphic meaningly. So these are the classification also. And such kind of classification also in, like for example, in mass communication and in journalism, all these issues are being taught, are being discussed, whereby these issues were discussed since time immemorial, since during the time of the Sahaba, during the time of the Atba' Tabi'in. The righteous producers, they know this. And these are the parameters that you are to utilize in order to verify the authenticity of narrations. So that's it. ومتواتر معنى متواتر لفظا ومعنى ومتواتر معنى فقط. It can be classified into two classes. There is a kind of polymorphic narration that comes in متواتر معنى ولفظا. It comprises a kind of unified meaning and unified utterance. That is a kind of unified statement. It comes in a kind of unified statement. Also the meaning is a kind of uniform one. It is not heterogeneous. And there is the one that will come mutawatir ma'na faqat. The meaning is the same. But the words, the statement of a report can be heterogeneous. So these are the way. So likewise, even there are some of the hadiths that if you review, you will see that the lafz, the words, the statement for all of the reporters is the same. There is no change of even a single harf, a single alphabet, or a change in a single shakl, for example. Even in a single sound, consonant sound or vowel sound, So we can say in the intonation also. Allah Musta'an. So there are such kind of narrations. And there are the narrations that the meaning would be the same, but the report would be different. And that's why even today, different news channels, they have their different way of putting the right words in the right place. They have the ways of putting their words. A kind of reporter can report an incident. He can report a case by using some of the idioms, or by using idiomatic expressions, or by using some of the figure of speech. So that's how it is. In some of the issues, you would come across a reporter. He would report for example, the incident similar to other reporter. The word would be the same. And likewise, even today, if you are reading towards the headlines, you would see so many channels. Their headline is the same. It's almost the same. Maybe if there would be a kind of changes, it would be in few words, for example. And some you would see literally, meaningfully, it is quite the same. So that's how it is even in hadith. There will be a kind of hadith that come in a kind of polymorphic way of narration. Several narrators narrated that meaningfully and literally in the statement the same, and meaning also the same. And there is the one that the meaning is the only that is unanimous finding, whereby the statement can differ. So that's how it is. And hereby he mentioned مثال. Husaymin mentioned example of this. قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the statement of the Rasul is on message of Allah upon him. He says that من كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده في النار من النار أو في النار. من كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. Example of mutawatir is this hadith. من كذب علي, whoever castigate a lie towards me, whosoever castigate a lie against me, or whosoever attribute a lie to me, فَلْيَتَبَوَّعَ مَقْعَدَهُ مِنَ النَّارِ, let him secure his residence in the hell. فَلْيَتَبَوَّعَ, let him secure his ticket, مَقْعَدَهُ, of his residence, مِنَ النَّارِ, from the lacquered fire. So by this you will be able to know that lying against the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam is capabilious hazard. It's a kind of vengeance statement. The regarding statement against the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam is a kind of evil utterances. So even for you to claim that the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam had said something, or he has reported something, or he uttered something, is a kind of menace, is a kind of evil statement. So the Rasulullah with respect to that, he said, whosoever claim a lie against me, he shall secure his residence in the hell. Meaning his final destination will be hell. It is not something to be playing with. Like for you to quote a statement by saying this is hadith, or the Rasulullah said this. I just come across someone giving a kind of speech by the title Hadith Forgery. Allah understand. So today people are forging. Allah understand. Even narration can be forged. Even a news story can be forged, for example. So to avoid this kind of forgery, Allah understand. But his statement, what he is trying to present is totally different with what I'm trying to say. I just catch from his way. So Allah understand, you cannot forge a statement to refer it to someone. That is innocent. So if you say something, you cut a statement, or kind of quotation, or saying, and you say it is from the saying of the Rasulullah, this is a kind of grievous lie. It is a kind of calumnious evil statement towards the Rasulullah, and if you did so, you shall wait for your final destination in the hell. That will be your destination. So you are not to mention something that is of falsehood or evil, or something that is not true, and to refer it to someone, or to claim that so person mentioned about it, even if that particular person as a political person, or public figure, or public personnel, do not just attribute a lie to someone. Do not attribute a lie to someone. That's how it is. And this is how the situations are today in the social medias, in several platforms. Something that hasn't happened or wasn't happening people would just claim that so incident has occurred in so place. So we should be wise individuals. So for false statement or false accusation or false reply, or for example plagiarism, has consequence. I just came across issue of plagiarism just recently about one scientist. So anything has consequence. So think about the consequences. So the consequence or the consequences of attributing lie to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that a person would secure his ticket. He would have a kind of automatic ticket to the lake fire. And that's it. It is very simple. Going to the hell is very simple, and going to the heaven is also very simple. Like one person recently, he said no problem for him, he can just go to the hell. There is no problem in him going to the hell. Allah musta'an. So we should know the kind of statement that we should utter. Allah musta'an. So for the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you report a lie and you attribute to him, it is as if you are securing your ticket to the hell. So that's one of the issues that we should try as such to understand. So this hadith was part of the Mutawatir. It was reported by several companions of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فقد رواه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أكثر من 60 صحابي. The ones that reported this statement from the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam are around almost 60 companions. 60 reporters narrated this short statement. من كذب علي فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. So you would see that, you would realize that this statement is very important to our daily routine, to our life. This is very important. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that whomsoever attribute a lie upon him, attribute a lie to him, he shall secure his residence, his destination in the lake fire. So by this we would be able to understand that this statement is very significant and it is authentic. How? By observing the way of its arrival to us, the pathway that it came. We report this. The reporters are authentic individuals. They are certified individuals. They are people of license. The Rasulullah has given them the license of journalism, reporting his statement, his utterances, his actions, his affirmations, and his attributes. So the companions that reported this hadith are around almost 60 individuals. Around 60 companions reported this. So by the polymorphic way of narration, you would be able to recognize that this report is an authentic one. It came from authentic source. So from here we would be able to understand that, like this statement of the Rasulullah was reported by several companions, around 60 individuals. منهم العشرة المبشرين بالجنة المبشرون بالجنة أو المبشرون بالجنة. Among them there are including the العشرة المبشرون بالجنة, the 10 individuals that were certified with the ticket to Jannah since when they were alive. Among the companions we know there are people of virtues. They have merits. Each and every individual among the Sahaba, he has his own personal merit. Among them, there were those that were notified with a ticket of heaven since when they were alive. And these are the Ashara al-Mubashirina bil-Jannah. Namely, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Sa'id bin Jubayr, Sa'ad bin Abi Waqas, Abdurrahman bin Awf, Talha bin Ubaydillah, زبير بن العوام. These are the العشرة المبشرين بالجنة. And Amir بهم, Abi Ubaydah, Amir bin Jarrah. These are العشرة المبشرين بالجنة. All of these individuals, they reported such statement from the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. ورواه عن هؤلاء خلق خسيب. ورواه عن هؤلاء خلق خسيب خلق كثير. Those individuals, beside them, there were other reporters that reported such statement from the Al-Ashra al-Mubashirin bil-Jannah, whom they are many, they are uncountable. There are numerous reporters that reported such statement from the Al-Ashra al-Mubashirin bil-Jannah, or al-Mubashirin bil-Jannah, or al-Mubashirun bil-Jannah. So this is how you will be able to recognize whether a report, a certain narration, a certain story is a kind of polymorphic one or unimorphic one. And by this you'll be able to confirm or verify the authenticity of such report or such narration. Why this hadith would be authentic? From its first way you would be able to verify, like the Sahaba. Among the Sahaba there were those that reported this statement, and among them you were people of merit, like Al-Ashra al-Mubashirun bil-Jannah or al-Mubashirun bil-Jannah. They reported this kind of statement. And likewise, وَالْمُتَوَاتِرُ مَعَهُ, and there is a kind of polymorphic narration which is based upon the meaning. Maybe the meaning would be polymorphic. There is the one that the statement would be polymorphic one. The statement from all the reporters would be unanimous one, would be uniform statement. And there is the one that the statement would differs. Like for example, in English grammar, we know there is what we call homophones. In phonetics, phonetics we have what we call homophones, if I could recall, for example. So likewise also, there is a kind of report that the statement would be unanimous one. The report would be a uniform report. The statement would be uniform from different narrators or from different reporters. And there is a kind of narration that the report can differ in its statement. Its statement can differ. It can differ. But in the meaning would be a uniform meaning. The meaning would be the same. So this is what Usaymin is trying to highlight here. So in case of متواتر معنى ما اتفق فيه الرواة على معنى كلي وانفرد كل حديث بمعناه الخاص, is a kind of narration that all the reporters, they had a kind of consensus in the meaning. Meaning there is consensus in the meaning. The entire meaning is the same. It's a kind of uniform one. وانفرد كل حديث بمعناه الخاص. But still, each of the narration, each of the hadith has its own specified meaning. So that it's a kind of report. Al-Mutawatir Ma'ana is a kind of polymorphic narration whereby there is numerous statement which was reported about one incident. But for each and every reporter reports something that the meaning is a kind of unique meaning, it's a kind of specified meaning. Meaning to every rawi, to every reporter, of which he reported, similar to the reports of other reporters. So what his personal report, it is specific based on his own way of narrating, based on his own way of statement. So that's what he mentioned here, and that's how it is. As I mentioned, al-mutawatir lafzan differs with the mutawatir ma'na. And then he mentioned مثال, example of such, example of mutawatir ma'na, a kind of polymorphic narration that the meaning is only the meaning that is the same, that is uniform. مثال, an example, حديث الشفاعة والمسح على الكفين. like the hadith that come on the topic of intercession in the hereafter, al-shafa, intercession, and hadith that talks about al-mashu, mashu al-khuffayn, wiping on top of cover shoe, wiping on top of the leather shoe. The hadith that talks about wiping on top of that is the socks, for example, or the cover shoes. So these are some of the examples of al-mutawatir ma'na. In terms of intercession, like the hadith of Abi Ayyub al-Ansari, of whom the Rasulullah visited his house, his home. Abi Ayyub al-Ansari prepared a feast for the Rasulullah along with his companions, of which when the Rasulullah started to consume the meal, he took one of the portion from the meal. When he ate that, he mentioned one of the statements, أنا سيد الناس يوم القيامة بلا فخر. And he mentioned the entire story. And part of the story is related to al-shafa'a. People would visit so many messengers from this to this. From Adam to Noah to Ibrahim to Musa to Isa, up to the final of the messengers. And he would say definitely, أنا لها, أنا لها. Instantaneously he would say, أنا لها. I'm the one point. So the intercession, the first person, the first of the messengers that he would have a position of intercession is the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So there are hadiths on that, and these hadiths are mutawatir. They come from different companions, different pathways. So like the hadith of Abi Ayyub al-Ansari and other Sahaba that inherited that hadith, like Abi Hurairah also. So also like the hadith that talks about Mas'u al-Khuffayn, like the hadith of Mughira bin Shu'bah, the hadith of Tabuk, for example. So many Sahaba related about the Mas'u al-Khuffayn. We know regarding this, Imam Malik honest reputed that. Thereby afterwards he heard about the hadith of Mughira bin Shu'bah. One of his students acclaimed him on that. He gave him a kind of declamation that there is hadith that talks about al-Mas'u al-Khuffayn near to the end time or lifetime of the Imam Malik. He began to give out the ruling of Mas'u al-Khuffayn based on the hadith that come on al-Mas'u al-Khuffayn. So the hadiths are mutawatira based on these regards. وَلِبَعْضِهِمْ, and to some of the narrations related to the al-mutawatir ma'na. There is one of the poem or one of the stanzas related to the mutawatir or mutawatir ma'na. Like here, Uthaymin mentioned, مما تواتر حديث من كذب ومن بنى لله بيتا واحتسب ورؤية شفاعة والحول ومسح خفين وهذه بعض. So this is one of the popular stanzas that accumulate the ahadith which are mutawatir. مما تواتر حديث من كذب. Among a kind of that are included in the polymorphic narrations. Among the polymorphic narrations in the hadith من كذب, like the hadith Rasulullah said, من كذب عليه متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. So whoever castigate a lie towards me, he shall secure his destination in the racket fire. That hadith is mutawatir. And any hadith that is mutawatir, it is authentic. But it is not only the authentic hadiths that are mutawatir. Do you get this principle or this law? Any hadith that is mutawatir can be considered as authentic. Any hadith that is mutawatir is authentic, but it is not all the authentic hadiths that are mutawatir. Any mutawatir is authentic, but not any authentic is mutawatir. There is an authentic that will be of al-ahad, like إنما الأعمال بالنيات. This hadith is authentic, but it is al-ahad, reported by single reporter, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. So you see, by this we will be able to differentiate the issues. And also, وَمَنْ بَنَى لِلَّهِ بَيْتًا وَاحْتَسَبَ. وَمَنْ بَنَى لِلَّهِ بَيْتًا. Like the hadith, Rasulullah said, مَنْ بَنَى لِلَّهِ بَيْتًا بَنَى اللَّهُ لَهُ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. This hadith is mutawatir ma'na. Different narrators narrated the hadith in different statements, different ways, but the meaning is the same. Whosoever build a house for the Almighty likewise, He would build for that person, for such person, a home or a house in Jannah. He would build for him a home in paradise, in the heaven. So by this we will be able to understand that this hadith is also mutawatir. So this is an example of mutawatir. Because if you go to the books of hadith, you would see several narrators. Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sunan Ibn Majah, Sunan Nasa'i, Musnad al-Bazzar, Musnad al-Humaydi, Musnad Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. Masani, different books of Sunan, different ma'ajim reported, من بنى لله بيتا والله له بيتا في الجنة, and different statements, but the meaning is a kind of uniform meaning. And also واحتسب, like the example of the hadith of which Rasulullah said, من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whoever perform Ramadan by seeking reward from the Almighty, غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whatsoever that came to fast from his shortcomings, from his mistakes, from his evil actions, from his wrongdoings, from his sin will be expiated, will be forgiven, will be erased by the Almighty. Because the Almighty will erase your past coming, your past shortcomings, your past sin, the sin that you have committed before Ramadan. If you perform Ramadan while seeking reward from the Almighty. But if you perform just because you see people doing it, you see your parents are performing the fasting of the month of Ramadan, or your friends, or your colleagues, or your peer groups, then you copy them without seeking reward, without doing it for the purpose of securing something from the Almighty, definitely you will not get that. So that hadith, Muhalli Shahid, is mutawatir. It's a polymorphic narration which came from several narrators, several reporters, several Sahaba, Abi Hurairah, Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Abbas. All this reported such hadith. But you can find that the report came with different weights. There are some of the differences in the statement or in the weights, but the meaning quite the same. من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. ورؤيا, like the hadith of Ru'ya, like the hadith which was reported by Abdullah ibn Abbas, for example. So the hadith is mutawatir, for example. And likewise, Shafa'ah, like the hadith that talks about intercession, the one that I earlier mentioned, like the narration of Abi Ayyub al-Ansari, like the narration of Abi Bakr, like the narration of Abi Hurairah, wal-Hawlu, and the hadith that talks about al-Hawlu. Abdullah ibn Abbas narrated that. Abi Hurairah also narrated that. The valley of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, hadith al-Kawthar, it is also mutawatir. And whosoever denied a kind of mutawatir, he is throwing himself to some of the consequences. Like for example, you are watching a news channel. You come across a particular headline which says that you should take precaution, otherwise you would get infected with a kind of viral infection. So you take that statement for granted. You do not value that statement. You go to another news channel, you see the same headline. Take precaution. You move to another news channel, you take the remote control and you change to another channel. You see the same headline, take precaution. Maintain social distancing. For example, use the face mask. You change to another channel, the same information. Take your precautionary measures, but you neglect all this information. You see it from different reporters, but you neglect that. So you may end up running yourself to danger. You may get infected with that kind of infection. So you see, this is a kind of example of the consequences aligned with negligence in, that is, our negligence in polymorphic narration. So it's a kind of very important narration. But if you see something, or a single person, or a single organization, or a single body mention that this is right or this is wrong, so you have an option to have a relief, maybe to verify afterwards, or to not, for you not to take the measures. But today we come across some issues. The government will say, do this, do that, but people will not take heed on this. When something of hazard happen, then they would, for example, they will take heed on it. So there is consequence in not giving heed to polymorphic narrations. So that's one of the issues. ومسح كفين وهذه بعض. Like مسح على الكفين, wiping on top of the kuf is also a mutawatir. So these are some of the examples. وهذه بعض. So in the standards it mentioned وهذه بعض. These are some examples. These are few among the examples of mutawatir. So this, what we are going to understand, since that this hadith that talks about Ash-Shafa, intercession, talks about the valley al-Kawthar, the hadith that talks about Mas'u al-Kufayn, the hadith that talks about that is Masana Ramadan Iman wa Ihtisab, the hadith that talks about avoidance of lie, castigation of lie to the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So this is something that is very important. You should be careful with it. And if you deny this, you are holding yourself to dangers. And that's how it is. Like some years back, we keep mentioning, we keep advocating about the issue of climate change and the issues related to the ozone layer depletion. That is the depletion of ozone layer. Many people, they don't take heed on that. Many people, that is reporters, that is the journalists, we're giving this kind of advocacy, this kind of, that is announcement. That is in the previous month, that the ozone layer is depleting. There is a kind of depleting of the ozone layer. But some of the people, they don't take heed on that. They keep emitting the carbon dioxide. They don't value this kind of issues. So likewise, if a statement or a report or a warning come from different reporters, different sayers, or from different saying or narration, you should keep heed to that. Try as such to listen. And if it is something that requires taking an action, then you need to act for that. So these are some of the examples of mutawatir. والمتواتر بقسميه يفيد. As for a polymorphic narration, with regards to its classification, it can teach something. So it teaches something. There are learning outcomes attached to polymorphic narration. If a narration comes by several reporters, if hadith come from several Sahaba, several companions, so definitely there would be learning outcome entitled with that narration or entitled with that hadith, which are as follows. Uthaymin mentioned the first of the learning outcome of hadith mutawatir al-ilmu. It gives knowledge, it provides knowledge. You will come across new things, you will learn many things. And that's why even Abdullah ibn Mubarak was once criticized that why were you subjugating yourself some time to go to narrations? Why were you living at home, sitting in your room, reviewing the hadith, reviewing the narrations? You will be undercivilized. He said, how can I be undercivilized? Because through the hadith I will come across new new things, new narrations, new names from the chain of the transmission. So that's why if there is a new thing that is going on, if there is something that is vibrant, or something that is going on, or something that becomes viral, a viral narration comes with new things. Like during the pandemic, when the pandemic became viral, the infection became a viral one. So many people learn about many things. We learn about taking the precautionary measures, many things uncountable. So that's how the significance within al-ahadith al-mutawatira. And this is what he mentioned here, al-ilmu. One of the learning outcomes is al-ilmu, it provides knowledge. وهو القطع بصحة نسبته إلى من نقل عنه. It is given a kind of, in the sense that it will give a kind of direct reliance. وهو القطع بصحة نسبته إلى من نقل إليه. Giving a kind of absolute reliance to the one that report was attributed to him, or that report was obtained from him. Suppose, for example, you come across a single hadith whereby 60 among the Sahaba narrated that hadith. So it would give you a kind of sense of home, a sense of reliance, that you rely, yes, this hadith come from the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In other way, it doesn't mean that if a single hadith was reported by a single Sahabi that you would consider that as not a hadith. No. It can be like إنما الأعمال بالنيات. The hadith is viral, it's mutawatir, but it was reported by a single Sahabi. Allah musta'an. So a report can be a viral one due to the application or due to the effect of that in humanness, or due to the effect of that in your daily routine. Like for example, the COVID-19 affect our life, the way we live. For example, before you are working normally, the women, they are working outside lipstickeristic. But the issue of wearing mask come to the extent that you will not be able to identify whether someone is smiling at you or not, whether your wife is smiling at you or not, whether your girlfriend is smiling at you or not, and vice versa. So, new things, new reports, new narrations, viral reports comes up with knowledge. But this doesn't mean that you should create incident. It doesn't mean that you should create incident or create stories, or for you to be fabricating stories. As how it happens today in the social medias. People are creating false stories. People become storytellers. But in case of hadith, it is not the case. You have to rely upon authentic ones, authentic information. And that's the work that was done by pious predecessors. Even to this our century, even to our time, our decades, we have ulama like Muhaddith. He wrote several articles, published so many books in this issue in order to verify the authenticity of information or the authenticity of the ahadith. He has a kind of series of Silsilat al-Ahadith al-Sahiha, Silsilat al-Ahadith al-Mawdu'a, Silsilat al-Ahadith al-Da'ifa, Sahih al-Jami', all this. Before him, Al-Hafiz Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Al-Hafiz al-Zahabi, people like Ibn Kathir, many Nuqqat and Jahabiza that work for this, because the hadiths are the treasures. They are the prophetic tradition. And the more people interfere with it, play with it, they will lose these treasures. And that's the reason why people today, they did not value the personality of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they don't know who he is. They don't know about his tradition, because they were distant, or they are distant away from his information, from his hadith. And that's the reason. For you to know much more about the Rasul, you have to refer back to the athar, back to the ahadith. So likewise, in any kind of information, when information becomes viral, it calls the attention of people. It affects humans. So and that's the reason why today many stories are created intentionally or willingly. Many incidents are created intentionally or willingly. So you should know how to react to any information that you come across in social media. When for example, mass media, because there are some of the mistake, for example, by some of the people in the social media, something that doesn't happen, or they just hide, they would publicize without verification. Even if a person is an eye observer, he observed that incident by his naked eye, you need to verify. Do not just publicize to people. It will become an impotence, poisons to their heart, or it will create a kind of protest or demonstration, or it will become a kind of evil in the community. So that's the reason why you should try as such to be verifying. So even with the matters of religiosity, you need to verify some of the issues. Even in ahadith, there are ways to observe, there are ways to review, to verify. And by that you will be able to classify. And that's the reason you should have this kind of decorum. You should have SOP, as how many news channels today they have this SOP. They have this. But today in the social media, people, they don't value this kind of ethics or this kind of etiquettes. They just publicize, they create lies, they create rumors. People become mongers, they become murjifin. والمرجفون في المدينة لنغرينك بهم ثم لا يجاورونك فيها إلا قليلا. Do not be closer to the mongers, even to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam during his lifetime. He was warned against the mongers, والمرجفون في المدينة, and the mongers in the city of Medina. لنغرينك بهم ثم لا يجاورونك فيها إلا قليلا. We will intensify you on them, so as for them not to be your neighbors in the city, so that they should not be your neighbors near to your place, except few of them. So do not be near to the platforms that spreads or that publicize rumors, even if they are known as news channels, or YouTubers, for example, or Facebookers, for example, or what they call TikTokers, for example. How can you even react to something in TikTok? What I consider is that this platform are created for entertainment. So you cannot just walk by the information you just see in such kind of platforms. Dedicate yourself to a kind of information that maintain liberty, a kind of information that maintain like a kind of that is reliable. So you can have this kind of platforms. There are many news channels, many reporters, many journalists that you can rely upon them. They provide reliable information, authentic information, because they follow this kind of procedures. But today, despite of this, not even rumors, a person without the fear of God, he would just type something and he would share it in the social media, something that is not real, something that is totally fabrication. And at times even, he would say it is hadith. Well, so the consequence on that is that you will have a kind of dispute with the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the day of judgment. And if the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam become your opponent, he become your counterpart. In the hereafter, definitely you shall secure your destination in the Lakay Fire. So that's one of the issues that we should understand. It provides knowledge and information. Whenever something is polymorphic, important polymorphic narration, or something that is violent, Allah al-Musta'an. Thirdly, second one, al-amal bima dalla alayhi. Acting on anything that it inspires, anything that it inspires towards, anything that it teaches. You can take a nod on it. You can take action by that. So suppose, for example, when the COVID-19 become viral, many people act on it. The researchers, the medical personnel, the physicians, and even the lay people. For example, the layman also take precautions. Someone that doesn't know the value of mask. Before, some of the people were thinking wearing mask is a kind of work of physicians, or the health workers are the ones to wear masks. But now it reached the extent that when something unexpectedly occurred, it became viral. People began to realize that wearing a mask is not for a certain person. It can help you, it can protect you. So that's it. Whenever something becomes viral, it teaches some of the lessons. It teaches lessons. We had some of the lessons like in this COVID-19. So likewise in the hadith, if the hadith is viral one, if the hadith become viral, the righteous believers, they are not making the hadith become viral. They are not doing it intentionally, but as how it came from the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as how it came from the companions. So that's how it is. العمل بما دل عليه بتصديقه إن كان خبرا. One of the lessons is that taking an action to whatsoever it teaches by relying to it, by believing in it, if it is a narration, if it is a story, if it is an information, when it comes with something, like when it talks about intercession in the hereafter, because it came from several sources. So what we will understand is that we can believe in that. And that's the reason why the believers believe in the intercession, al-shafa'a. And they believe in the al-hawd, the valley, the al-kawthar, because it came in a polymorphic narration. And likewise, if something becomes violent, people give heed to it. For example, وَتَطْبِيقِهِ إِنْ كَانَ طَلَبًا. And they will practice it, if it is a kind of request. Suppose, when an epidemic or pandemic is arriving, there will be a kind of request to the public, do this, do not do this. Like in case of cholera, you are required to take personal hygiene to ensure eating or consuming sanctified food, for example, or certified or high quality food, for example. Maintain the food hygiene in order to avoid getting infected with cholera, for example. So by this you will be able to practice that because it comes with a request. So that's one of the issues. If a narration is al-mutawatir, a polymorphic one, it teaches so many lessons. Basically, the lessons are like, for example, knowledge. It provides knowledge. It provides information for which it will make a person, or it will make people to abide to that, and to also have reliance, the certainty that that was obtained from the person that the information was sourced from him. And that's the reason why we rely on the hadith mutawatir from the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And likewise, we would be able to react to the viral information when it comes in a form of request. And also, we would testify, we would believe if it comes with a story. Like, for example, the hadith that talks about end time, for example, or the eschaton. So some of those hadiths are mutawatir. So in such, we have to be certain on that, we have to rely to this. So these are some of the lessons that we would get based on a hadith mutawatir. Our next discussion will be in the second classification of the narrations, al-ahad, the one that come in a unimorphic way, in a unimorphic narration, the one that come from the riwayah of a single companion. So all this information are beneficial to the journalists, are beneficial to the reporters, not even in the field of hadith, even in all the field. If an information comes to you, do not just react. Try to verify the authenticity of that. Try as such to classify it, give it classification. And that's why in order to understand many issues, even to like animals, in order to study the animals, the life of animals, in order to understand the way they behave, in order to understand their life, we have taxonomy. We classify the animals into kingdom, phylum, species, genus, and many more. And likewise, even the microorganisms. Although the human is one species, Homo sapiens. But one thing is that you should try as such to listen, confirm, verify before reacting, before taking action. And one important way of verification is by classification. So I think you take this notification. Take this notification. One way of verification is by classification. Do you take it? Yeah. So by this we will be able to understand that to verify something, you need to classify. If you go without classifying, and that's why you see even for the chain of transmission there is none. Even in the Masanid, if you go to the books of Masanid, you will see Musnad al-Madaniyin, Musnad al-Makkiyin, Musnad al-Ansar, Musnad al-Muhajirin, Musnad al-Basriyin. There would be classification, otherwise you will not be able to verify. And likewise, for example, if the Asian, someone from the Asian continent did something wrong for you, you should not just condemn the entire Asian or to help the Asians. You have to verify, because they will not be the same. And if someone from Africa did something wrong, try not to condemn the entire people of Africa, or someone from Europe, or someone from America. He did something wrong for you. Do not condemn the entire continent, or the entire race, or the entire nation, or the country. Try to verify. And while you are verifying, you will come across classification. You will know so segment they are not like this, so segment they are not like this. So if a person make an utterance, or he spread a rumor, or he mentioned a lie, or he mentioned a speech of hate, do not condemn the entire nation. If a person hate a particular person, and he castigate him, or he mentioned a derogatory way, do not condemn the entire nation that particular person is from. Do not condemn the entire race, for example, of such person. How do we understand this? By the knowledge of ahadith. So it gives knowledge. You will benefit from. If you take yourself away from these ethics, you would be beating around the bushes. Allah musta'an. So we ask the Almighty to reward us in this session. And I think if there is any question, you can forward the question so we can discuss further on it. So our point of discussion of this session is related to al-mutawatir, أخبار المتواترة وأحاديث المتواترة. كما قد تكلمنا عن أقسام وما يستفاد منه، وقد تكلمنا حول نماذجه أو أمثاله، وقد سمعنا من نماذج شعرا مما تواتر حديث من كذب ومن بنى لله بيتا واحتسب. ورؤية شفاعة والحوض ورؤية شفاعة والحوض مما تواتر حديث من كذب ومن بنى لله بيتا واحتسب ورؤية شفاعة والحوض ومسح كفين وهذه بعض. This is stanza which you're supposed to memorize some years back. These are some of the very important, like for example, poets that you should memorize because it will help you to retain the information, the rules, the ethics, the laws and the principles in the ilm al-hadith, in the mustalah al-hadith, ilm al-asanid, ilm al-jarh wa al-ta'dil. One of the basic ones that everyone knows is Manzumat al-Bayquniyya. So on this one of the stanzas from the ulama, like Uthaymin mentioned, this. So try to capture this, try to memorize these stanzas, or this poem, or this poem. مما تواتر حديث من كذب ومن بنى لله بيتا واحتسب ورؤية شفاعة والحوض ومسح خفين وهذه بعض. These are some of the examples. مما تواتر حديث من كذب ومن بنى لله بيتا واحتسب ورؤية شفاعة والحوض ومسح خفين وهذه بعض. So we discuss about the learning outcomes of the mutawatir, al-mustafadat, ma yustafadu minhu. So inshallah we are going to stop here. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.